Alright guys, so welcome to video number 4, which is my analysis of the top 6 teams in terms of where they finished in the Premier League last season. So sorry if you have been waiting for me to upload a video, I've been busy with exams. However, let's get started. So first team to start off with is the home of the champions, Chelsea. And so yeah, in terms of transfer business so far, they obviously sold Czech to Arsenal, but they bought Begovic, who obviously has been a very dependable keeper for Stoke and previously Portsmouth in the Premier League for the last few seasons, actually a couple of seasons. And I'm pretty sure Stoke want to keep him. It's just that Begovic obviously wanted to move on, probably higher wages if anything as well. And they've obviously got Jack Butland who's emerging. So, but Chelsea have got themselves a fine keeper. He obviously will be second to Courtois. And Begovic last season did well. I mean, the only mistake he made was against Chelsea, ironically, at Stamford Bridge when he gave the ball to Hazard. Then Hazard assisted Remy. But otherwise, a good transfer, and they've replaced Czech. Maybe not man to man, but in terms of quantity and in terms of as good as you're going to get for a second keeper. In terms of other transfers, when it comes to Chelsea, they've obviously brought in Falcao, and when I want to get one thing clear that Mourinho doesn't do anything out of pity. Like, although he did say he wanted to show people in England how good Falcao is, we know how good Falcao is. Just go on YouTube and search, and you will see videos of Falcao destroying teams with Atletico Madrid. He even destroyed Chelsea, ironically, when he scored us 4 goals. But there is some, thought process gone behind Falcao coming to Chelsea, and I think Falcao is actually a good player. I don't think last season his chances were very peculiar in the sense that it was a bit weird at how Van Gaal would give him opportunities against big teams. So, I mean, he will not play like a succession of games. And any striker will tell you, any good striker, they need, consecutive games to build up, their game. And Falcao would just be randomly assigned to being the first team against Chelsea away. So, it's kind of, here's your chance, probably in the toughest place in the Premier League, and let's see what you can do. So, but Falcao, I think, is more like, he's had one season in the Premier League. He's going to get used to it. So yeah, and I'd honestly think now, before I discuss the positions and which players in particular in Chelsea to look out for, who I think will be playing, it's important to mention that Chelsea haven't bought a lot of players, in the sense they haven't changed a lot, and this team is kind of aging, but still a very strong team, obviously champions, and should never be underestimated that when you don't necessarily buy a lot of players and you don't do a lot of transfers, doesn't necessarily make your team any weaker. Yes, it's aging, but chemistry probably is even more great than last season. So in terms of keepers, yes, Courtois, he will be starting. Begovic, I doubt it. I mean, unless there's injuries or Courtois has any problems in terms of form. But Courtois is number 1. In terms of defence, I see Terry and Cahill being the main centre backs. Zuma will be emerging, there's no doubt. He has played a couple of games. He even played against Barcelona in the friendly. And I mean, Suarez does destroy a lot of defenders, but Zuma definitely did get a battering from Suarez in that game. But Zuma has shown in the games last season that he's very good for the Premier League standard, and he even performed very well against Man United. He kept Fellaini on lock for the entire game, and it shouldn't be forgotten how good Fellaini was in terms of Man United doing well last season at the end. Fellaini was almost the pivot for all their attacks. Ivanovic and Cesar on the flanks, I think they're pretty much guaranteed first. They are guaranteed first team football. I mean, Cesar has less competition now with the fact that Luis has gone to Atletico Madrid, but and I think his form in the last 3 games I've seen, although they've been friendlies and the community shield, has been a bit below par, because Cesar's been a fantastic defender for the last 1-2 years. Sensational, in fact. One of the best defenders in his position. But maybe this is a small blip. Maybe there's no competition. But that could be an area where Chelsea might suffer, because when a player does not play well in a few games, it makes you wonder. But I mean, in terms of value, Cesar's definitely the lowest, and I can see a lot of people purchasing Cesar. But there's no doubt Terry and Ivanovic are more expensive for a very reason, that they offer more points offensively. So, yeah. In terms of midfield, Matic, Willian, Ramirez most likely, but he might change that around with Oscar. Then obviously Fabregas and Hazard. These guys are all staple. Obviously, there is Cuadrado, Loftus-Cheek, but I don't see these players being absolute first-team footballers. In terms of players to buy, Hazard, Fabregas. I mean, you could buy Willian and Matic, but I already discussed in my previous videos how you want to think about which players you buy in terms of set pieces, offensively, etc. So, yeah, I mean, the two midfielders, if I had to pick two, it would be Hazard and Fabregas. Oscar's great. There's some weeks where he gets sensational points, but he's not a first-team footballer. And lastly, in terms of strike, now the only striker I would honestly get, unless Falcao, you know, picked up great form, would be Costa. But Costa, obviously, he does have a problem with his hamstring, and he also has a problem in terms of his behaviour on the pitch. And although he did say he's not going to change it because he hasn't received a red card last season, he did get enough yellows to accumulate a suspension. So I think this is a familiar theme that will continue to this season, and something you guys should be aware of. But there's no doubt Costa as a striker is great. But yeah, that's my view on Chelsea. Now, next is Manchester City. And Man City, well, they've mainly bought a lot of British homegrown players so they can fulfill their quota. They've bought Sterling, obviously. Everyone knows about that signing. They bought Delph and Patrick Roberts from Fulham. And that's pretty much it. There will be departures. Dzeko, apparently Roma, that's almost been done. So yeah, in terms of positionings, Hart, first team keeper, there's no doubt. In terms of defence, they've got a few injuries with Zabaleta, Argentina and everything. Clichy, Knox, Demichelis again, Argentina. Copa America, so. But yeah, Company, Mangala for now. I think Mangala will be first team even if Demichelis comes back. And Zabaleta, and on the other flank, it's going to change quite a bit, with Clichy and Kolarov. I think if you wanted to really get a defender from Man City, when Zabaleta comes back, he's a very good option because he has that offensive, potential. But I honestly think City have shown themselves last season not to be a very good defensive outfit, and honestly think that you guys shouldn't be really investing in Man City defenders. However, if you had to buy one, maybe Zabaleta. Company, possibly, but I think Company's not had a great couple of seasons. I think he's overrated, in fact. So, but again, in terms of fantasy, if you're going to get Company, you might as well get Mangala. You say the 0.5, and Mangala has, I've seen him enough times in the opposition penalty box, almost studying players at the back. So I'm sure Mangala has some offensive potential. So yeah. In terms of midfielders, now City have some very talented midfielders, no doubt. Silva, Yaya, Sterling. Now it's funny because I watched City versus Chelsea last season, the 1-1 away game at Stamford Bridge, and everyone, pundits were saying how great of a game Navas had. But my conclusion of the game was, if City replaced Navas with someone like Sterling, it probably bolstered the team. And ironically, that's exactly what happened. Okay, they're not told Navas to leave, but they've bought Sterling potentially on the other flank. But I think it's a great signing. So, in terms of first team, I think Fernandinho, Yaya, these two are going to play. Nasri most likely, although he had a dip in form, I think he will come back, and Sterling and Silva. In terms of players I would get, it's very simple. Silva, Sterling, potentially Yaya, because City might get penalties, and obviously Aguero's not back yet. So, and Yaya does have some, does get goals, even though he's a slightly bit more defensive than probably what Silva and Sterling are. But let's not underestimate it, and especially near the end of games when City. They put Yaya quite forward in advance because they know his strength can, really cause problems to the team near the end when players are tired. In terms of strike, so at the moment, Boney, he's a very good striker. Last season, when he was at Swansea, he was one of the standout strikers in the Premier League. He's so-called getting used to City now, and I think this season he can really, truly show himself as a world-class striker. Until Aguero comes back, he's a really option. Obviously, when Aguero comes back, Aguero is one of those special players in fantasy, and that's also signified by its value. £30 million. There's not many players that valued that highly at the start of the season. So obviously, you get Aguero, you have to accept the fact that there will be other positions you won't be able to invest as much money in. But Aguero definitely is worth it. Scores enough goals. I think last season was a record in terms of number of goals scored. Scored 26, and he accumulated 216 points. And as long as Aguero's injury free, takes set pieces, great transfer. So just a matter of waiting for him to come back. Now the third team is Arsenal, the team I actually support. Now, in terms of transfers, I mean, there's only really one to discuss, and that's bringing in Czech. And I mean, people might think Arsenal to get defensive midfielder and striker, whatever the situation is. Let's not forget, same thing with Chelsea. The gelling of the team, the chemistry would have increased. And let's not forget, a lot of players were injured last season. So, like example, Chamberlain's now emerging, and he was practically injured nearly all of last season. You know, he had a sensational game at Old Trafford in the FA Cup, but he got injured even then. So, a lot of the players are back now from injury, had a good rest. You know, there's no so-called tournament except for the South American players, whereas last season there was a World Cup. So I think Arsenal, it's not aging, it's more like players are coming back from injury and they've had a good rest, and I think they're really ready to fire. And they've been showing that in the friendlies, even against Chelsea. I mean, they've actually got a treble in terms of pre-season, so they've done pretty well. Also, another point I want to make is, as an Arsenal fan, this is quite familiar to what Arsenal did, what Wenger did actually into the transfers. This season, when Arsenal went unbeaten, he just brought Lehmann in, a solid keeper, and the rest stayed practically the same. So let's never underestimate the significance of buying a quality keeper, but at the same time keeping things constant. Because Arsenal definitely near the end of the season did get better. I think they conceded only like 13 goals on last 19, so defensively very strong. And obviously Arsenal offensively have a pose a great threat. Now in terms of keepers, yep, Czech will be first team. Defence, I see Mertesacker and Koscielny starting. Chambers could potentially play in some games, and so could Gabriel, but I think Gabriel especially more than Chambers, because Wenger was discussing how it's kind of the last 6 months for him. The last half of last season was more of him acclimatizing, getting used to Arsenal, language barrier. But we can see more of Gabriel for Mertesacker. But I think Koscielny is almost guaranteed starter. So unless it's injury, so Koscielny is the one I would personally buy. I wouldn't really bother with Mertesacker, and probably he is 0.5 less for that very reason. But Koscielny obviously attackably also poses a threat as well. In terms of the flanks now, on the right you've got Bellerin, and you've got Debuchy, and even Chambers. So there are options. And I honestly think that, as great as Bellerin was last season in terms of fantasy football, both are valued at 5.5. It's kind of a split game. I think there will be some games when Debuchy will play, and some games that Bellerin will play. And frankly, in fantasy football, if you're going to invest in a player, you should make sure he plays. So I wouldn't gamble on the right or on the left back situation with Gibbs and Monreal. Although I do think it will be most likely that Debuchy will be starting and Monreal, but Bellerin could equally start. That's even more hard on the right. But on the left, I'm pretty sure Monreal. Monreal showed himself to be a very good left back last season. But so, in conclusion, the Arsenal defender that would purchase would be Koscielny. In terms of midfield, I mean, there's an array of talent when it comes to Arsenal. However, in terms of actually players that are guaranteed first team football, very few. Coquelin obviously is the one who I think will be playing first team football, guaranteed, and Ozil. And obviously when Sanchez comes back, he'll be first team. But otherwise, all the other players, Cazorla, Ramsey, Chamberlain, Walcott, these players will share. They are not guaranteed first team football. And it shows the power, the kind of options available for Wenger. And the fact that he was so limited last season, it wasn't seen. But now that every player is almost back, fit and healthy, you can actually see he has a lot of options. So in terms of the three midfielders that I would get from Arsenal, I wouldn't consider Coquelin, so it's that of Ozil and Sanchez, frankly. But obviously you can gamble. Walcott is definitely the gamble maybe considering, because he might play some games in strike, like he did for Community Shield and the previous games last season, like the FA Cup final, the game when he scored a hat-trick, I think against West Brom, right? So And similarly again with Giroud. Giroud, I think, will be the first team striker, but there will be some games where he will be on the bench and Walcott will be in strike. Do not be surprised by that. So, but Giroud will most games be the player on that first team sheet, but he's not guaranteed to play every game. That's not Wenger's made that very clear through his press conferences. Now, the fourth team is a team who've been very busy this season in terms of transfers, and that's Manchester United. Now, there's been a lot of speculation regarding De Gea, but he looks like he's staying, and they've obviously bought Sergio Romero, and I think he was at Sampdoria, and he didn't play that many games. I mean, he's shown himself to be quite well on an international stage, and he has some history in terms of Van Gaal. But I do think that if De Gea goes, because the transfer window is still open, anything can happen. We've seen some big transfers happen at the end of the season. Then Romero will most likely pit Valdez into being first team keeper, or maybe, you know, there's been the rumor flying around a bit that Man United might consider Lloris if De Gea goes, but I think Valdez, after the comments and everything with the reserves, etc., I just don't see him playing first team football potentially. I just think Romero probably will get the nods up. So keeper situation De Gea, but if there is a transfer, then that might not be so clear. But for now, definitely De Gea. In terms of defense, now they've obviously bought Darmian, and I've seen him on the international stage. I haven't seen him play much for his team in terms of club before. I think Rafael's on his way to Lyon. And but otherwise, we're going to see something similar again in formation in Van Gaal. And I see Smalling. I see Smalling playing. I see Jones playing. Rojo's obviously injured, so I see Jones playing for that very reason. I think Darmian might play as well, and I think Valencia might be put up a bit more forward. The interesting point is that Valencia, if he's put more forward, he's actually a defender in this game, so that might be worth considering because if Valencia is a first team player playing in midfield and he's in the game as a defender and he scores, defenders get 6 points for a goal. So these are things to point out. But in terms of defenders, I would buy Smalling. Did show he can get some goals and set pieces last season at the end, so he's one to consider. And maybe Valencia, maybe. And Shaw, obviously, this season he had a very good season for Southampton the season before. Yeah, and depending on how he starts, every player that I suggest and I promote, there are some players who emerge throughout the season. It's just natural. It's how fancy it is. Sometimes you have to. It's a key point. Sometimes you just have to react to players doing very well in the season. Ramsey the season before that as well, and sometimes you just have to negate it. So that's a point worth mentioning. But at the moment, as a main out defence, I would say Smalling, probably the one you want to consider. But he is £6 million. He's the most expensive main out defender for that very reason. In terms of midfield, Di Maria, he's off to PSG pretty much. And in terms of midfield, obviously they've bought a few players. Depay looks like he's first team football to me. Schweinsteiger looks like he'll be first team football to me in that central midfield. And obviously got other players. Don't underestimate how well Young was playing near the end of last season. Got a good number of assists, was doing well. Obviously there's Mata, who essentially was favoured over Di Maria near the end. And was the right decision. Mata played sensational against Liverpool away last season. So also Schneiderlin. I mean, in terms of players that I would probably say to get, Depay obviously is a player who is offensive and he does offer more, probability-wise, chance of him getting more points. But let's not forget that we've seen a lot of players take time. It's not doesn't mean if a player scoring goals in the Dutch league at Eredivisie, doesn't necessarily mean will be very successful in Premier League, because Depay had a good season for PSV last season. In terms of players to get for main Nats midfield, Mata possibly, okay. Otherwise Depay, but otherwise other than these two, I don't really think there's one that I would particularly highlight to. Obviously Schneiderlin might be a good player to get because he's only 5.5, and Schneiderlin does have the potential of getting some goals, but like I mentioned before, midfield is where you want to invest money. Mata does take the set pieces as well sometimes, so I just think Mata or Depay. In terms of strike, I see only Rooney. But when I say strike, Rooney has found himself in very weird situation because he's the fact that he's a great player that he actually might be used as a defensive midfielder, unfortunately. So be careful about this because if you've got Rooney your team and you start watching a Man United game and you see him on the middle of the pitch, there might be you know the possible outcome that he's actually playing in defensive midfield, and I think that's kind of stupid from Van Gaal. Don't think that's the right thing to do. Rooney is a great striker, world class striker. In fact, he's shown that enough for Man United in the previous seasons. So I don't think he'll repeat his mistake. But Van Gaal, he almost got Barcelona relegated. So you never know. He might do that, and he's quite stubborn in what he believes is right or wrong. So yeah, but obviously Rooney offers a great option. He will be taking penalties. So yeah, Rooney definitely someone I promote, but just be fearful of the fact that he might be in defensive midfield. So yeah. Um, in terms of the next team, that's Spurs, who finished above Liverpool last season. They've bought players in defence, notably Trippier from Burnley, and they've bought Alderweireld from Southampton, who's a really good buy. They practically stole him from under Southampton's noses, and it's a really good transfer. Obviously, it's a pairing of Vertonghen and Alderweireld. They've obviously had a lot of history in terms of club, and obviously from Ajax and internationally for Belgium. Otherwise, the Tottenham team is pretty much the same. Adebayo, I heard rumours of him possibly going to Villa and reuniting with Sherwood, and obviously there's also rumours about Sadado leaving as well. But in terms of players that I would promote, Lloris is a great option. The fact that he's not 5.5 tells you that how bad Spurs. I think Spurs were horrible last season defensively, and I honestly still think that kind of takes me aback when looking at when looking for defensive players. So goalkeepers or defenders not Southampton, sorry, Spurs. So when I look at even with Tongan at 5.5 and Rose, for instance, who did get some points offensively, Spurs' record defensive last season was quite bad, and I still think it's going to remain the same. Pochettino, I don't think this is something he can fix overnight, over seasons. I think a lot of things are needed, but definitely with Alderweireld coming in, they will be stronger. But I don't think Alderweireld is that great of a defender as well. Last season, he did get caught napping. If you watched him against Leicester away, he did a few mistakes, and okay, that's just one game, but I think Tottenham still might have issues defensively, and it might take them a bit more games during the season to finally figure out the best back four partnership, and then maybe it might be worth considering a Spurs defender. But for right now, if you had to buy one, I'll probably sway towards Rose because of the defensive potential, or maybe even Alderweireld. Alderweireld does have a good free kick in him, so he's someone worth considering. But otherwise, I mean, obviously there's Lloris and stuff, but I would kind of be cautious about buying a defensive player from Spurs. Now, in terms of midfielders, last season I think it was Mason, Bentaleb. Lamela played quite a few of the games at the end of the season. Yeah, Chadley and Ericsson. I think Ericsson's a great option. Free kicks and everything. I think Ericsson might be a little bit of a dark horse this season in terms of players being selected. He's only 8%. Still, I guess, somewhat higher in a way, but he's not as high as his price increase suggests because his value has increased from around the 7 region to 8.5. And he has that potential of getting goals and obviously takes set pieces. He is an attacking midfielder. And Spurs don't have that many players offensively. If you look at strikers, they play with the kid on top. So Ericsson, Chadley, and Townsend, he's at the moment injured, but I see these players, or then Lamella, if not Townsend. These players do have potential, but in particular, I would say Ericsson and Kane, because Ericsson does take free kicks, Kane penalties. So those are the two players that I would particularly promote to, is Ericsson and Kane. Those two players is what I would advise who are worth considering. And Kane might be worth 9.5, which is a shock maybe for quite a few guys because he was literally like 4 million. Like that was his value pretty much, 4 million not too long ago. And this is what happens in fantasy. Things change. He went last season, went up to like 6 million, and now he's at 9.5. It's the right probably value. Okay, yeah, it's a bit bumped up, but then again, like Rio Ferdinand said, British players' values are tend to be bit tend to be a bit boosted up. So, but otherwise, yeah, Kane, Eriksen for sure. Now, the last of the top six teams, that's Liverpool, and yeah, they've also bought Bogdan from Bolton. You guys might remember him when he got lobbed by Tim Howard. So yeah, he was that small chap, but I don't think he will be that. He will be a first team keeper. Mignolet will be first team keeper. Obviously, Jones has gone, and in terms of defense, now everything's pretty much the same in terms of buying. They bought Klein, who I think is a great signing for £12.5 million, has been reported. And they've got Gomez, but Joe Gomez from Charlton, I just think that he's just more of a prospect for now. In terms of defenders that I would buy from Liverpool, Klein's definitely worth considering. Moreno as well, possibly. Yeah, I would say Moreno as well, and because he has um, some attacking involvement in terms of Liverpool and how to play on the flank. And Skirtle on set pieces. Last season, I don't think he got that many goals as he has got in previous seasons. Like, yeah, last season he got one, whereas the season before he got seven. So there is that difference. But, if he gets a good season in terms of goals, then it's a lot to profit from Skirtle. Because let's not forget bonuses, and if he keeps a clean sheet, there's a small points. In terms of midfield, in Liverpool, now they've bought players. Firmino, they've bought Milner from a free transfer from Man City, and these are good signings overall. In terms of starting lineup, I think it will most likely be Chan, Doubt Lucas. I see Milner, I see Henderson, and the wing I see Coutinho and Firmino. But Firmino might not start the first game. I think it might be Ibe, but something along those lines. And also Lallana as well. I think Lallana is the one to look out for in a way as well, because I do honestly think Lallana is a top player. He's both-footed. I think he's really talented, and as long as Rodgers has him in his plans, he's definitely a player worth considering. But in terms of players that I would suggest for the first game week for sure, Henderson definitely is one player because of the fact that he has penalty taking duty, and I think last season he went like an entire month for scoring games consecutively, so he has that potential, and he might have more of a kind of duty now to kind of get more involved, like become that box to box midfielder like Gerrard was, and especially now that Sterling's gone, there's even more emphasis on Henderson. In terms of strikers, Sturridge is out, he's injured, he'll most likely come back in September. I don't see Balotelli and Barini really being involved. I think Benteke, so you guys might have seen his friendly goal, very similar to the goal actually he scored against Norwich quite a few seasons back for Villa. Benteke is a player worth considering. I honestly think he's a top player, world-class striker at making, and as long as Liverpool play according to play to his attributes, I think he will deliver goals. So yeah, Benteke is the one player that I would promote. Not Ings, I think he won't be majorly involved. And in terms of Origi, now Origi is a bit of an interesting choice, but I still think he's young. I think he's very much a player who's going to be kind of the understudy to Benteke. They're not similar players, but I think Origi, this is not his season just yet for fantasy in terms of picking him for the first game week. I think Benteke is the one who will be starting, and he's a player to gamble on. So yeah, this is my analysis of the top 6 teams. The next 2 videos will be on the next 7, so the so-called mid-table teams, and the last 6 will be last 6 or 7, sorry, will be on the teams who potentially might be involved in a relegation battle. So yeah, thanks for watching my video, and before I end, just a reminder that I've actually posted a video with a league code for you guys to join. And so yeah, thank you for watching my videos. Thanks.